Hello.
Hello again,
Episode
friend.
3.
It's three
What's up, fucking heathens?
heathens.
Heathens. Um, so episode 3, and we figured out how to do a video recording, you guys.
Oh my god, we are evolving as we speak.
Yeah. We are going to be making a YouTube soon, where you guys will be able to watch us talking to each other through Zoom. So welcome to my
hmm
house.
Welcome to my nest.
Yeah, your nest. Nicole has that hanging chair we've talked about a couple of times, and it is the comfiest thing ever. I'm sitting in a computer
hmm
chair and I'm like, I miss my hanging chair.
I'm coming over.
Man, you guys, today is a episode that we're really excited about talking about, but can we really quick talk about that full moon in Cancer we just had?
Girl,
Holy crap.
God, we were talking the other day, and it was like, it was great going into it. And then once we got on the other side of it and it started to like lessen, oh, it's almost like a withdrawal or a hangover.
Yeah, we're talking about like full moon hangovers because like
A
I felt
remedy.
great. I don't love cancer placements per se. I don't hate them, but sometimes they're just really hard for me.
hmm
Especially having an Aquarius moon, I'm always like, mm, mm.
I don't want to feel them.
I don't want to feel that. But I felt great during the full moon, and then afterwards, it has been unbelievably hard to get out of bed.
Oh God, so tired. So tired.
Yeah, seriously.
Like my face feels tired. You know, like that feeling like it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, I'm like, everything feels tired. I need a massage. Ida, I need a
Dude,
massage.
I just made an appointment with her for Monday.
Oh man, I need to make an appointment with her because I've been saying this for weeks, and that full moon hit, and I was like, oh no, I'm fine. Everything's great. And then afterwards, I'm like, I,
I'm
I lied.
tender.
We also are almost out of full moon or Mercury retrograde full moon. Mercury retrograde, but it doesn't end until the 18th. And I feel like it's starting to hit heavier towards the end here where communications have been.
Oh my God. And like I've tried to pick up one email and get it to like load, and I can't get that email to load at all.
I I mean, you can literally see it was sent, but they're like, nobody needs to know what you said. It's fine.
Nope.
Mercury's like, no, you already
You
sent it.
got it.
It's good.
Which, if I'm being honest, is probably true. I don't need to like look at
Yeah.
it. All I'm doing is like gossiping and like, what's the other thing? I don't know. Just like not being my best self is what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
being a little brat and like all that stuff.
Yeah, but same. Also same. Okay, so today's episode is all about trauma and
Trauma.
how to heal it. And last week I asked you guys at the end of episode 2 to start thinking about what trauma looks like for you. Like, what do you think, or healing, sorry, jeez, what healing looks like for you. Um, so today we're going to go into that. So, how we're going to start this is we want to really strongly stress that trauma is looks very differently for every single person existing.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Like Nicole and I have similar pasts, similar childhoods, but they're not the same at all. But we
Mm-hmm.
recognize that and we don't one up each other on our traumas.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't I mean, it doesn't yield a very good outcome to it. And I also feel like a lot of times we would go, especially for me, I am very much into comparing traumas and being like, well, mine's not that bad because this, that, or that, right? Like, it was only my grandparents, not my parents. Like, it's fine. Like, my grief is is lesser than his grief or whatever, right? And it took me a long time to realize that that's not the case, right? Like, and you and I both know that we see peoples from all walks of life being hairdressers and interacting with people on a intimate level. And, you know that that people with, even like with money, like people with money still have the same problems that people that without money, like have the same problems or not, you know what I mean? Like they still have things that make them depressed. They still have things that make them like frustrated or anxiety over. It's not like those things went away once one of the things was fulfilled.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was going to say to that too is like what happens a lot for me is when people hear about my past, they're like, "Oh my God, like how are you who you are? And like how did you even move through that?" And blah blah blah. And like I'll always be like, "Oh, it's not that bad." And people are like, "Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess everybody's trauma is just different for them. And that doesn't make it
Mm-hmm.
lesser or worse, or it doesn't make their my trauma win over theirs. You know what I mean?" And
Right.
when you start doing that comparison and you start thinking about how worse your trauma is versus somebody else, or how worse somebody else's trauma is over yours, it doesn't lead towards the path of healing.
No, definitely not. Because you are basically bypassing your own feelings.
Yeah, and trauma can be used to advantages as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just a disadvantage to have trauma. You can start using those towards your advantages in not healthy ways.
Right.
You could start saying things like, you know, you could use your trauma to be codependent on somebody, and that could be a way that you're using it, and you think that it's a good thing. You
Mm-hmm.
think that you being codependent on somebody else, and sometimes codependency, you don't even recognize that it's happening. But
No, it's
then,
very covert, that's for sure.
yeah, and then you say, well, that's just my trauma. That's how I am. Like, I had this thing happen to me in my life, and now I'm dependent on this person, and like their feelings are my feelings, and like that's just like how I am. And it's like that's not healing.
No, that's using it as a definition of yourself, which means you're going to be stagnant. There's no growth in that because if you identify, and we see it all the time, and I'm totally use this too, is like, well, I am, and it's very easy to do because in society it makes us right, especially right now, the flavor of this timepiece that we have right now, is very much like owning and being a victim to life, right?
Yeah, basically we normalize it.
Yeah, totally. And it actually, if you're not a victim to something, it's more, not being a victim, or it's weirder, I should say. Um, Wait, what were we talking about?
We were talking about how people are normalizing their trauma and using it towards their
Yes.
advantages. Mm-hmm.
Um, Being owned by that victimhood and, uh, like I am dyslexic, so reading's hard for me. So you have to, I don't know, make your path away around me because this is my wound, my victim part of it, right? Like you have to like go around me.
Yeah, because like maybe I am dyslexic, we know this. And as a kid, I couldn't read or write until I was in the fourth grade. And now I love reading. I also love writing, but I haven't done it in a long time. But
Mm-hmm.
I got made fun of a lot because, like, in grade school, we had the wall thing. I can't remember what it was on the wall, but it showed how many books you were reading, and it showed where each person was at in their reading level.
Oh wow, we didn't have that.
Oh, we had that. And I was always like last place, man. I
Yeah.
was just trucking along in the back there, and I used to have to go to like this little room in my elementary that had my favorite person in school besides Miss Gold something, but I will never forget this teacher's name, Miss Pillow. I loved her. But she
That's
taught me how
awesome.
to read and write. Like I even had to do like the two fingers between words because I would just my sentences didn't have spaces. It would just be all these letters
Oh
together.
God.
And so I could have taken that and been like, well, I'm dyslexic. Like you're gonna have to like explain that to me in a different way, or you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to do this and you're going to have to change everything about yourself to work around my
Absolutely.
dyslexia.
Right, right.
And it's like that is not healthy.
Well, and it was very interesting because, like, I had the same feeling when I was really researching and discovering what Im being an empath was, right? And this was, I don't know, years ago. And I remember before I really got into YouTube and all the other like social media stuff was really a thing. Um, I remember reading stuff on, I don't know, maybe it was Facebook or Pinterest, and these are signs that you have that you are an empath. And a lot of the stuff, and I agreed with a lot of it, obviously. Now that we know about neurodivergency and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I remember feeling like, okay, I identify with most of this, but I don't want to be a victim to it. Like, I didn't want to be, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but this is the way I kind of like my brain works. Is I didn't want to be a pansy to it, right? Like, I wanted to find strength in it. And yes, like at first, like you do, you're like, yes, I'm a victim to all these feelings. And, you know, if he's angry, I can feel it. And I feel this certain time, it triggers me, right? And I knew I needed to move past that because it just didn't feel right to stay in it and to be like, this has to be a superpower in some way because why am I born like this, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like when you have that wound, because Nicole and I like to talk about trauma like an open wound.
mm-hmm,
You want to treat it like an open wound. Basically, when you aren't healing a wound, it's like you're picking at it and you're keeping it open. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes it spreads more and more open, wider and wider, you know?
Well, it becomes infected.
Yes. So, um, words are extremely hard today. Again, this full moon hangover, man. How would you heal that open wound? How do you heal your open wounds?
Well, yeah, and that's the way I really wanted to look at because I was so fascinated recently about like if I break my leg, it's 6 weeks before I go back to work. If I lose my daughter, I'm expected to go back to work, what, a week, 2 weeks?
Wait, if you lose your daughter,
Yeah. Or like if you lose somebody.
you mean like death?
Yeah.
I was thinking like, oh God, my serial killer brain went, where'd she go? Like, did she like is she just do you not have her location? Like, what do you mean? Like lose her? Like, oh my Lord. I was like, you're going back to work after a week. You're not on out walking the like
Streets?
yeah, like you're not like putting on
You're
a
not
full
supposed to be.
manhunt. Good
Oh,
Lord.
there would be a full manhunt for sure.
I mean, yeah, that is we society as a whole expects, I mean, in my opinion, and this is going to be controversial for some people,
Mm-hmm.
um, but think about it. If it really bothers you, what I'm saying, just maybe think about why it bothers you. But I think in this day and age, we are, in some respect, created to be in the workforce, and there are
Mm-hmm.
expectation and rules that go along with that. So yeah, if you lose somebody super close to you due to a death, you are expected to be back to work in like what, a week, the next day. Especially in our careers, a lot of people they care a lot about their looks. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a I understand it.
Oh,
But if
absolutely.
they have an event coming up and you lose somebody, but they needed their hair done, sometimes we do get that back end of people not being understanding. It
Mm-hmm.
happens in every single industry,
Mm-hmm.
dependent on the obviously the situation could go differently. But yeah, you're expected to just be right back into the workforce.
Yeah, like they expect you to just, we were raised by people that just stuffed their feelings down and went on. That's what we were supposed to do. But that's exactly what we were supposed to do when we were, in history, when we were trying to survive. Well, we don't have to survive. So now we have to actually sit with these feelings. That's why we are here. I feel, and I don't know which generation. Sometimes I feel like it's my generation, Generation X, to stop those generational curses. And I know they have their own like, maybe it passes through me and it goes to the next generation. Like Trinity's going to stop some generational curses too. Um, I feel like uh, we do have to sit with our feelings now. We can't just always do things. It's not like I'm always out hunting for food or preparing food or tending to the garden and doing all these things. And that's why a lot of these like traditions have gone awry because we don't have to do them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now we have to actually sit with our feelings and we don't even know what to do with those. We don't know. I mean, look at mental health. We have no idea. We say a lot of lip service about mental health, but we don't do anything about it because we can't touch it, we can't brand it, we can't put a label on it. Like my mental health looks completely like I've been trying to convince people lately like laziness is a mental health issue.
I agree.
It's not derogatory.
No, because a lot of time it's too much on your mental load to
Mhm.
do things that you need to get done. When you
Mhm.
don't feel good mentally, it's hard to imagine like taxes. It's tax season. Us as
Right.
LLCs, we have a lot we have to get together to do our taxes is a great example, and
Mhm.
it's not that I'm lazy, it's that that's a lot on my mental load sometimes if other
Mhm.
things in my life are heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very, yeah. Because even like we have vivid imagination. So, of course, like it's so much bigger than what it really is.
exactly. I agree. Laziness is a mental health issue. I don't believe it's just somebody's super lazy
Mm-mm.
and it's not like a part of their personality. It's a mental health issue. I agree
Right.
100%. I feel like when it comes to healing, to heal is to change a pattern. And to change that pattern, it's changing the unwanted to the wanted. And you guys, when we're talking about healing, the biggest thing we really want you to take from this is you need time.
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 And I don't mean time heals all wounds. Like, it's not about, because some wounds I really thought about it like some of them you don't want to heal. Like, there's things in our society that's very acceptable for you to hang on to. Like, you lost your father. Again, we're one upping each other on like death and um, wounds. Again, we're comparing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that like it's very easy to not work through something because it's acceptable for society to be that way. Like if I did lose my child, like it's very easy for me to sit in it for years and stay there.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to say to me? I should get over it? Are you kidding me?
If somebody says that,
Right.
if we ever lose that baby, by the way, yes, we call the baby the baby. Nobody
Right.
puts the baby
In the
in
corner.
the corner. She is the baby. If you lost the baby and somebody was like, well, it's been like years, aren't like, why aren't you over it?
Right.
I'm
Right.
slashing their tires.
Right. If not
Something.
worse.
I might go ham,
My
absolutely ham.
Oh, it would, and the funny thing is you would be okay with doing it. It'd be perfectly acceptable for you to react that way, right?
Yeah.
And um I so this is the thing is the way I think about healing wounds is it's there. It's almost like a scar. And then you put experiences around it. Like once you start healing it, right? Like as long as you're actively healing it, it brings layers of like new, it's almost like it is that whole phoenix thing. Like once you have the wound, then you go to one life as kind of fixing it, healing it, feeling your triggers, And then you start living, it's all about time and you have to walk through it, you know. You know, they say you have to just walk through it. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And whatever that looks like for you is exactly like you do have to go to work because you have to move, right? But
Yeah.
in time,
But in
like
time.
I always say that death takes 3 years to heal. But I don't mean it in like, oh, I forget about it and then I don't cry about it ever again, right? Crying is healing. So, what I mean by 3 years is like I've watched people go through death, and the first year is almost like you're breaking down who you used to be.
Mm.
The second year is almost like you're incubating in that place. And then the third year, you are creating somebody new.
It's like the caterpillar to the butterfly,
Absolutely,
per se.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
A good example for you guys is it's a personal one, but I don't want to like air out my whole entire childhood here because like it's almost mostly healed. But
Right.
my mom is not in my life, and neither is my father. And my mom was always in very toxic relationships. I mean, almost everything you guys could think about a toxic relationship happened in my childhood when I watched my mom in relationships, specifically one relationship. But when you learn more about mental health and you learn more about how we take almost everything that we learn from a child as a child and bring it into our adult life, and reprogramming those things is really hard, you'll understand why this happened for me. But watching my mom go through all these toxic relationships and the way that she felt love from them gave me my idea of love. So
Mm-hmm.
my first really long relationship, long for me, was 7 years. I was engaged. We bought a house. It was the most toxic relationship I've ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to heal from it, I started to recognize similarities between that relationship and the relationship my mom had with my ex stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing that, I started being able to heal from it. So when we talk about healing in time, I took 2.5 years after that relationship. And it wasn't because I wanted a hermit. It was because I knew that if I got into another relationship, I would still be seeking out the same things that I had in that one. So recognizing your
Mm-hmm.
patterns,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing why they're there, what caused them, things like that, and then taking them and again changing the pattern is what is going to cause true healing. So by
Mm-hmm.
taking that time for myself and not dating anyone, and I went on a couple dates here and there, but gosh, they were very few and far in between. And every time I was like, ew, I need more time still. Cause like this is not, I'm not good still. Um, Taking that time for myself really caused profound healing for myself. Um, it allowed me to find even my spiritual self. And I started healing wounds that I didn't even know I still had from my mom because I had written that off when I was 16. I thought that I was like, oh, yeah, I'm good. But I wasn't because it went right into that relationship and it was going even into friendships after that. And it
Mm-hmm.
took me a long time of consistent work and intention put behind my healing to heal that wound. And then to start, like you said, once it's scarred up, it's still there. And it does
Mm-hmm.
pop up every once in a while. You'll brush over that scar and you're like, ooh, that's still there.
Yeah, that's a little tender.
But then when it's basically like you start building a flower bed around it, and
Mm-hmm.
then flowers and flowers and flowers around it. And then it starts getting like smaller in a way where you start being able to be like, yeah, that happened, but it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like you could even get sometimes, I'm not saying every situation or every person deserves forgiveness, but sometimes you can get to a point of forgiveness, which for me was the ultimate healing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I forgive my mom for everything that happened. Do I want her in my life? No, that's okay. It's almost like I am now the butterfly where that was an old version of me. I am a new version of myself now.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I'll probably even evolve from there in the future, and that healing process could still be changing.
Right.
But I needed that time by myself to really go through and deep dive into all of those things. And yeah, I was still working, still hanging out with friends. Like, my God, when that was happening, Nicole and I had a few friends we would go to every Monday night to the bar and hang out
I
and talk and
know.
get food and
Yep.
chill. It was great.
It was a
So
great time. It was our cheers moment.
it was our cheers moment. It really
Mm-hmm.
was. So it's not like we're saying you have to hermit, but it's also not a bad thing to take time for yourself to allow healing, to allow yourself to process what happened, recognize what was unwanted in the situation, and then change it into something that's wanted.
Well, and I think it's really hard for us to like, I think it's ego. It makes us like well, at least for mine, the way mine talks to me is very much like I'm supposed to be perfect,
Yep.
and um, I'm supposed to like be healed already. I didn't come out with any trauma. I remember talking to somebody and they were like, do you think tattoos are linked to trauma? And I had always told myself that, like, or somebody asked, like, why I had so many tattoos, that I would say, like, oh, I just want to decorate my skin, right? Because it's clear. So, of course, I want to put stuff on it. And then I remember at being asked that question again by somebody. And then I was like, it hit me all of a sudden because I was comparing my trauma to somebody else. So I was like, no, I don't really think that they're because of trauma. I've been doing it just because I'm a free spirit, and it's not like I've been through anything like you've been through. And I was like, oh my God. You know, when the words just slip out of your mouth and you're like,
Take it back, get back in there.
and you can see just like the thoughts like stop immediately and go, fuck. I am literally comparing my trauma to somebody else's.
Yeah, it's like you catch yourself.
Oh yeah, it was such a moment of like, huh. And then I was like, okay, so apparently I've had a lot of trauma.
Well, and also speaking to this too, you guys, again, trauma is so different for everyone. Nicole and I were
Mm-hmm.
talking about it yesterday, and I was saying, okay, big traumas for me, childhood stuff, right? As an adult, big breakups where it was super traumatic. Traumas for somebody else, depending on mental health, could be something as simple as you go to Myers, which, if you are listening to this out of state, is a grocery store in the Midwest. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
anywhere else, but I'm not really sure. Anyways, you go to the grocery store, and going to the grocery store is already hard for some people, right? It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of energy, it's a lot of people. Sometimes
Nobody wants to
people,
be there.
nobody wants to be there, and you can feel it. And like, there's mean people sometimes, and yeah, it's a whole thing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
let's say you go to the grocery store, or somebody who experiences trauma in this way, you go to the grocery store and some old lady's yelling at you because you're in her way and you're taking too long looking at the ingredients in a box because that's things you care about. And then you inside are like, oh my God, like I'm gonna cry right here, right now in this public space. Like, and I gotta
Right.
get out of here. Like, I gotta run. And then you never go back to that grocery store ever again because of that once experience.
Right. How many people do we talk to that actually say that kind of stuff? Like,
Yes.
oh, I'm never going back there. I had this experience and I
Mm-hmm.
am never going back there again.
That is simply trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't even recognize that trauma happened. There could be one person, like a waitress, even any place that you can think about that you're like, I'm never going back there again because that was such a horrid experience.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma. You're
Trauma.
traumatized. You're
Mm-hmm.
never going back there again. And like, those are things that we have to recognize. For somebody, could be so traumatic for somebody to where that somebody else would be like, okay, get fucked, old lady. I don't give a
Right.
crap about if you needed the box of cereal in front of me and I wanted
Well,
to read it.
well, and the thing is if we go back to the four agreements where you're not supposed to take anything personally, and if you think about that, and I thought about this for a really long time, is because I was like, how do you not take anything personally?
Right.
It's me. Like, it's my person. Like, I am taking this personally. So I thought about, like, this person from the day they were born to the day that they stood right in front of you at the grocery store yelling at you. Every step that she took to get there led her to that place. So when she's yelling at you, it's because of her foundations and everything that she like brought into that place right then. And she's
Yeah.
just projecting onto you.
She could have had the worst day of her freaking life and she just
She
wanted to
doesn't,
get her
yeah.
shit and get out of there.
And she doesn't know you. She doesn't know what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you've like it literally you are just an item in her way. You're not anything more than that.
To her,
And that's
you're an NPC.
yeah,
You're not
yeah.
even
You
real.
are. You're not even real.
You're
You're
just an
not even
obstacle
real.
in her way at that point, and she
Hmm.
just needs you to get the
Hmm.
hell out of her way. And
But
that's not
we
to,
take it so personally.
yeah. And that's not to minimize that you take it personally, right? But at the same time, you could take that trauma, like we've been saying, and make it your whole, like, you could talk about it for weeks to everybody that you could literally sit in it forever and be like, oh, old people, like that lady, she just made me so upset and hurt my feelings. And she almost made me cry in a public place and yada, yada, yada. We're
Hmm.
saying, try not to do that.
Even better is now that it's trauma, now it's a wound, and now it needs to be healed. So it's over there like, hey, I need to be healed. So now your universe is going to continually bring you a lady to yell at you so that because it's trying to get noticed, it's trying to get healed. So it's like, hey, hey, these are the patterns in your life. Like, that's what they're trying to tell you. They're like, me next. And the
That's
way they do it is they show it in the 3D world.
That is such a perfect segue, Nicole, because I wanted to go into next how, because this is perfectly setting up for this, how trauma can be manifested into your day-to-day life and
Hmm.
how to recognize that and how to change that. Because I still, you guys, I'm probably going to say this in every fucking episode we have, but this woman literally is like
Oh,
my
God.
senpai to life because there are times when I get in the trenches in my head, right? I'm digging a hole,
Hmm.
man. And it just gets get deeper. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And sometimes you just need that third party to look at it and be like, dude, it's this.
You're right.
It's literally this.
Because you can't see it when you're in it.
Right. You can't. And it's hard.
Mm-mm.
And then you just keep making up all these scenarios in your heads and you just keep going and going. But sometimes that's part of the healing is talking to somebody else, asking them what they think about it, like
Well,
getting
because
an outside perspective.
we're so good at gaslighting ourselves because we know exactly what to say. I remember doing loops in my head like, well, if I, God, I can't remember an example that I would overthink. Because it would be like, well, if I could do this, well, like a good one is like God is everything, right? It's the first one that came to mind. Whatever. So, if God is everything, then if I eat McDonald's, God made McDonald's. So then I'm eating the divine and everything's sacred. Nothing is less sacred because God made everything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but if you put that out in the 3D world or what I've been taught, like, it's segregated. Like, you have this is divine and this is not. So did God make the shit that came out? Is shit as sacred as I don't know.
daylight,
Right, right,
rain.
right. Like is because everything. So that's one of the like the way I would overthink something because I'm so good at gaslighting myself. I can't get out of that circle.
Right. It's hard to get out of circles.
Hmm.
I
That's
feel
why
like,
it's nice for you to come in my life because then we can like. You're like I have this circle. Can you look at it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the last one? We were talking about something and I remember Nicole was like, this just keeps happening and blah blah blah. And I was like, it's a cycle. And she goes, oh,
Yeah,
fuck.
you told me a cycle was ending. Because I was like, so I've just been contacted by like five people from my past, and we're talking like, oh, this one was 12 years ago, this one was like 3 years ago, blah blah blah. And she goes, it's because a cycle's ending. And I was like, oh God.
It was more like, fuck. Well, that's to add to everything we've been saying, you guys. uh, tr- I'm sorry, I have to like figure out what I'm trying to say because I'm trying to say so many things at once, and then I'm gonna start making up my own mashed up words.
Oh my God, seriously. It's the struggle the whole day.
We're not saying heal your trauma and you're never gonna experience trauma again. And we're
I
also not
wish.
saying trauma is the worst thing in the world that could ever happen to you.
No.
We need trauma to learn. We need trauma to level up. It's part
Mhm.
of the human experience.
Yeah, what do they talk about? How like a lobster would never grow unless it was uncomfortable?
Growing pains in people too.
Absolutely, because that's what we're here for. We're here for experiences. We're here for evolution. I mean, we literally evolve. We don't even see it. Like, we literally evolve. Like, if you sat down, like, if you got a desk job right now and you sat down, your body becomes a sitting animal.
Mm-hmm.
It adapts to what it's doing, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you got like a landscaping job, all of a sudden now you're buff and you got all these muscles and you're super tan because your body like evolves into what it needs, right? So and we're evolving on every like level. So
Yes.
not only really close like that, but like, as a human species, right? Like that's why I feel like autism and ADHD and all these things are starting to become more detailed because, though that's evolution, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had something and it's gone, so it must have not been important.
Oh God.
But I mean, once you guys, oh, there it is. Okay. What I was going to say too is that what we're talking about we're talking about this in a more spiritual way, right? And not every person this is going to um resonate with. You're going to be like, time, like I don't have time to I'm in a relationship again already and I'm not healed from the past relationship and what do I do then? So what I want to say to that is what we're saying is what works for us. And we're just trying to get you guys to start thinking about it. Start thinking about
Mm-hmm.
healing. Start looking at
Mm-hmm.
trauma like an open wound. Start thinking about these things because once you start doing the work, regardless of how you do it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever healing looks like for you, what we're trying to get you to a point of is stability. Stability in a mental and spiritual way to
Mm-hmm.
where you could have, again, when you start ending cycles, that cycle, it's kind of like even full moons, towards the end, it's going to hit you the heaviest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like I would say Mercury retrograde is starts out soft and it hits you hot and heavy towards the end. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. You could have something come up that was traumatic in the past, right? That if you start doing the healing work, because again, it's going to manifest into your day to day life, you're going to keep getting this thrown at you because the universe wants you to move on from it to be able to level up to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing the work, regardless of how you do it, it's not going to rock you so hard.
Right.
It's not going to move you. It's not going to put you into these deep depressions. Another, to bring back my relationship trauma, after that, my next big relationship was also very traumatic for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I moved on from it faster than I ever did. I stuck up for myself more than
Right.
I ever have. I healed myself because I had known what to do because I had done it the first time and I knew what I wanted. This relationship I have now is hands down the best relationship I've ever
Mm-hmm.
been in my life when it comes to an
Mm-hmm.
intimate romantic partner. Like everything that I wanted, I had tried to heal, but even you, I will never forget. And then you guys, this is the best fucking feeling when your friends start recognizing things about you.
Mm-hmm.
After my last relationship, Nicole was like, I'm so proud of you. And
Mm-hmm.
hearing that, it makes me even teary right now because it was like such a cool moment that I didn't even recognize for myself. It was like one of those things where it's like, oh my God, my friend recognized how much work I have done, and it made me reflect. And I was like, holy crap, man.
Mm-hmm.
Before I would have went into deep depressions, I would have hermited,
Right.
I would have pulled away, and I would have tried to hone in on healing to where
Right.
now it's like the healing just kind of flows with me.
Well, it's so that test or, pattern, if you will, um, was for empowerment, right? Like it wasn't recently because we've been dealing with the stuff at work. Recently, I've really started thinking about these struggles that we have as learning curves. So instead of being anxiety about like, oh my God, this isn't going my way, or why am I got all this strife at work, why, all this stuff, like all this disease, like all this stuff that it's because I asked for something, right? I asked to be successful. I asked to bring more wealth into my life. I asked to be um, a monarchy almost. Like I want people to this will sound bad, but I want people to do my bidding,
Yeah,
right?
you want to be a powerful player.
Yeah. So and then all this trouble started happening and I could totally look at it and be a victim to it and stuff like that. And I totally was. I was like, why is this happening to me? And then I remembered I asked for it. So now the universe is providing steps along the way for me to learn how to be that person. So now I don't have to look at it as, oh my God, this is happening to me. Or even like think about it later. Like I've stopped thinking about all that strife later too. It's not overthinking it, not like overplaying it, like, oh my God, are being anxious about it? Like, what am I going to do? And you've helped me with this. We look at it and then we move on. Like, what's our plan in the next step? What are we supposed to do? And I think that's a really cool way of like looking instead of being anxious about it because society totally wants you to be anxious about everything that goes around, right? Everything that's around the corner, like we're supposed to be like worried about it. And if you're not worried about it, then
They can't step in and help you.
well, it's almost like if you're not worried about it, like it doesn't mean anything to you. So the more I worry, the more I have anxious about what's going to happen, the more I care. And that's not how that is, right? Like, oh, if I feel guilty about this, then I'm being a good human being. Or if I'm being anxious and worried about the future, then I'm being a good human being. Like, they want you to sit in these, like, feelings that aren't good for us because that's what we've been trained to believe I mean, think about it. Your mom worried about the rent, right? So what do?
Oh
You
yeah.
worry about the rent.
Yeah, money was a huge issue when I was a kid. I was you were
Right.
unbelievably poor. Like you guys, I couldn't eat peanut butter for a really long time because like
Oh, right.
peanut butter was it's an easy, cheap way to fill up a kid. And
Yeah.
it was like I couldn't do it anymore. I wrote off peanut
Hmm.
butter, bologna, which bologna anyways. Well, anyways. But like that's exactly it. Things that were big issues as a kid, I got to
Hmm.
watch that. And I was on the tail end of receiving it. And so
Right.
now as an adult, I still am working through some things that they feel like doomsday sometimes,
Right, right.
And then
Mm-hmm.
the part of once you guys start getting into this healing phase, and again, when you start getting to that really stable point where not a lot of things rock you anymore, you'll have that moment where it is doomsday, where it is the most scariest thing in the world. It is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And then it'll be like a flip switches, and then you're like, wait, actually, this isn't like, yeah, this sucks, but like, this isn't the end of my world.
No, I feel like that's why I watch horror movies though, is because I'm like, well, at least I'm not being murdered right now.
Yeah, that's why I like serial killer podcasts.
My day's not that bad.
Shout out to fucking Morbid, man. They make me like realize, like,
God, they're so good.
damn, I'm tattooed, so my likelihood is pretty low to be a
Right,
serial
to get
killer.
eaten.
Yeah, yeah, to get eaten, to get trafficked. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Where
Right.
I'm like, oh damn, that's pretty good actually. You know, I'm not like out here pissing people off enough to like have them jump out of the back of my car and
Not
do some
yet.
shit. Yeah, true.
Give us time, we will.
Yeah, right. I know. This episode, people are gonna be like, ugh, you're
Ugh,
making me think about my healing.
I don't want to do it.
You guys are done. You're done. You're done. You're done for.
And really, selfishly, we want everybody to heal so we feel better.
That was Nicole, you're really good at these freaking segues, man. Because I was gonna say, listen, what I really want to tell you guys too, we want to talk about what it feels like to once you become more healed. Okay. It's as simple as this. You want healing, but you don't want your life to change. That makes no sense. It
That
makes no
makes no
sense.
sense. Right.
You want to manifest something big in your life, like Nicole was just talking about. She wants to be a big player.
Mm-hmm.
Life has to change, man. You're
It
going to
has
go through
to.
traumas to get to where your life has to change. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you start becoming a more healed person, it's going to be hard to be around people that aren't healed, people that are victims,
Yeah.
people that are even, and I know victim can sound so harsh to some people, but again, if anything we're saying feels like it's hitting you really hot and you're like, oh,
Write it down.
victims, that's so mean,
Right. Write it down. Look
start
at it.
looking at that.
Yeah.
Why does that upset you so
Right.
much? Why does that
Because
hurt you?
you're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Exactly.
projecting is. Not only is the wound like, hey, it's me, it hurts. And then you're like, oh, you hurt me. Now you're projecting onto me. I
And
get that.
sometimes, you guys, when we walk around with these wounds, right? Think about it like right in your chest. It's like a shotgun blow to the chest because we are heathens and we like violence. Anyways,
I
that
killed
that
violence.
wound that you've had open for sometimes your whole freaking life. I'm turning 30 this year. It could have been my
Mm-hmm.
whole life, a 30-year wound. The minute that somebody's like pokes it and says, "What's that?" You're like, "Oh, that's mine. That's mine.
No, it hurts. It's
Don't look at
tender.
it. Don't touch it. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
look at it. It's there. It's what it is."
Right.
That's not healing.
Because we're having a problem with this right now. It's not so much trauma. I mean, it's trauma from like in our childhood or whatever, or things we don't like about ourselves, I should say. We're looking at certain people and we're like, well, I'm not like her. I would never be like her. Ew.
Ew.
And then like because I don't know, because I can like it almost feels wrong when I say stuff and then I'm like, well, why does this feel wrong? So then you start digging into like, why does this feel wrong? So because I'm talking, if I'm supposed to be a sovereign individual, this stuff wouldn't even bother me. I wouldn't even be interested in talking about it, right? So then I have to think about what is in it. Why am I so against the way this person is, right? Whether they're Karen, whether they're, they act a certain way, whether they're a victim, whether they're privileged, whatever it is, right? Um, are these things that I'm trying not to be, but they're part of me anyway?
Yeah, so like this situation that you're specifically talking about, you nailed it to the T. Because I was like, I know they say that if it bothers you, it's a reflection of you. But I'm like, I don't feel like this is a reflection of me because I don't need that much control in things that have literally nothing to do with me. I don't let things like that bother me. So what the hell is it? And you were like, it's because she's like a mother figure. It's the
Mm-hmm.
authoritarian. Well, you need to feel this way because I feel this way. And
Right,
it's like
right,
that whole again trauma based. You need to feel it because if you don't feel the same way as me, you don't care. And
right,
that makes you bad.
right. It's the validation. And this was a big thing when COVID first started that I was really processing
Yeah.
is the validation. Like, I did not get vaccinated. And just because if I'm learning to trust my guides and my intuition, it told me no. And, that's what I stuck with because I didn't know. I can't tell you why. I don't have like a specific reason, but that's beside the point. So, but what I'm trying to get to is um, people would get mad at me because I made a decision for myself. And I always wondered, why do I have to validate your choice?
Yes.
Why is it so important for me to do what you're doing to validate your choice? I'm not asking you to validate my choice. This is just my choice. It's the way I feel. And when I come here to feel the world, like I've really leaned into that. And it just didn't feel right to me. But that's not meaning that I am going to stop you. Because maybe you have something that you need to get the vaccination so you don't die, right?
My favorite thought provoking comment to that, because I refuse to talk about that in my salon because I am a huge believer in body autonomy.
Absolutely.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
what my favorite thing to say to that, to hopefully get thought provocation in there, whether that's about you or others, is everyone is doing what they think is best for them,
Absolutely.
which is exactly
Absolutely.
like trauma and healing.
Whether you're Russia or whether you're Ukraine, like you're still doing what you think is best.
Because I am me and my
Mm-hmm.
world is mine, and
Mm-hmm.
I am not you and your world is not mine.
Mm-hmm.
I respect your decisions about what you do in your life because you are doing what you think is best in your life. We do not live, none of us live the same lives. We might have similarities, which is, I mean,
But
come on, of
but
course.
right. But the
But
universe is never going to repeat itself.
no, and you know what? We're our own conscious beings.
Mm-hmm.
We are all doing what we think is best for ourselves, point blank,
Right.
you know?
I feel like I have to add this too, is like we're all doing the best we can with what we have.
Yes.
And this, as long as I keep saying that instead of being um, reactive towards people that have different opinions than I do,
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, I like try to remind myself to be like, we're all doing the best we can with what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to do, they're not going to see what you see, right?
Right.
We've done really hard work at researching and looking for like, how do I do this? How do I evolve from this? We have really taken this under our wing and made it part of our being. And this is not for everybody, and that's okay too.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things too, you guys, when we were talking about how things manifest in your day-to-day life. If you are not happy with your own decisions, it's going to continue to happen. You're going to continue to see people upset with you about things that you're upset about.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are hurting you, you're going to see it in your life. People are going to make you aware of the things that you're not happy with that hurt you. That again, trauma can come down to something as simple as a hurt feeling that boils and festers.
Mm-hmm.
And This is kind of one of those things where it's like, if somebody getting upset with something that you did, maybe you should look at like, why am I, why does that bother me? You know,
Right.
why does it bother me that they're so upset about something that I did, or they're not agreeing with something I did? Why do you care so much?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what in you needs that validation?
Mm-hmm.
Because being given the validation on something that, you know, is so big in your life, takes up a lot of your mental space and your emotional space, something you get very defensive over, isn't a part of healing.
Right.
This is again one of those things where we're talking about how trauma can be used as an advantage in your life too. The moment you get
Mm-hmm.
that validation from somebody, you're like, that barricade you put around that wound of not being self-confident and not being empowered, it's now got another layer of barricades,
Mm-hmm.
and that wound's just going to keep festering.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to start reacting, to everything that touches it because it's going to get more sensitive every
Right.
time. Because it
So,
is, if you think
oh,
of it
sorry.
like um, a pustule, do you
Yep.
know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it keeps getting bigger, it gets redder, it gets tenderer. Like it just keeps, and until you, I mean, I'm going to be gross here for a minute, but until you open that wound and drain the pus out, put some peroxide on it, put some neosporin on it. This is about healing, right? So you have to
Mm-hmm.
take those things that we do in the physical world and apply them to your emotional wounds. Put a band aid over it, make it less sensitive, protect it a little bit, let it heal. That was the whole thing about the, you know, 6 weeks. Like, if you had a trauma, you would have to take 6 weeks to let that heal, but we don't ever let anybody heal that long about mental trauma or stuff we can't see, right?
Right.
This is why I really understood cutting. There was a moment, it was 2 weeks after Dylan died, and I had a tattoo appointment. It was already set up. It was already I didn't it was just set, the universe set it up this way. So we're talking about it. The tattoo artist and I was like, yeah, man, I had this thing happen, blah, blah, blah. And then he started tattooing me. And I remember the relief of the pain because the tattoo hurt less than my physical pain, or than my emotional pain, I should say. And then again, as it was healing, because you know how they take 2 weeks to heal basically,
Mm-hmm.
as it was healing, I felt like my emotional wound was healing as well. So I got a really big download on why cutting's a thing. Like I get it.
I do too.
I mean, I'm not saying it's okay, but I get it.
So, speaking of that too, sometimes, okay, so Nicole, I think you've talked about this on the one of the episodes before this, but in in the magical realm, right? When you're doing magic, you really technically don't need the 3D materials.
Right.
But sometimes we need that to see what we're doing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same thing with that, where cutting makes sense to me too. I'm very sad for people that feel that need. And
Mm-hmm.
I have very close people that are very close to me that have had to do that. Sometimes you need to see it physically. You need to see it
Mm-hmm.
with your eyes because you need to be able to pour basically all those emotions into one thing to then try to heal it physically, which
Right.
can lead to emotional healing inside as well. I'm not condoning cutting, but I understand it.
I
Like I
understand it.
I get it. It's shouldn't be so shameful, or so much shame shouldn't be put onto it. And like, you're a bad person because you cut yourself. No, like I understand it. Sometimes we need to be able to see it in a 3D sense to be able to heal it
Mm-hmm.
in a spiritual way.
Right. Well, and I guess I need to add to that. We're not trying to shame people that do cut. I'm not
No.
trying to um I do feel like it does. It's hard because it's very controversial. And I do feel like it can do some good because obviously I get tattoos, so it's not any different than cutting, really. I just have it's just more acceptable, right?
Hmm.
Um I think that, but I don't think anybody uses it as like a medicine form,
Right,
right? It's not like they're gonna, I think it's like a drug almost. It's abuse, really,
right.
instead of using it as, because it's attention. So if you were using cutting as an actual healing process, then it would be more ceremonial and you would move on from it.
You fucking heathen.
Heathens.
You are bringing up the controversy.
Well, we're heathens.
Cancel. New age theory. You're getting canceled.
Thank God they should cancel me.
You guys, I like having a mic, by the way.
I do too.
Just a little nugget, I guess. I want to whisper everything.
I do too. I don't want. But then you can hear my mouth.
Yeah, and then when you're right in it talking normal, it's like probably loud as shit.
Right? Sorry.
Um,
Sorry, it's the first time we've had a mic.
I just want to give you guys too some resources that we have both used over time that have helped a lot. And I really want to talk about one of the biggest things that helped me personally.
Therapy.
Therapy.
Therapy is good. Therapy is amazing. And therapy is so much better than talking to your best friend because your best friend isn't a licensed therapist.
Also, your best friend's biased as fuck, yo.
Right?
Dude,
They're
biased as
literally
hell.
they're going to sit there and say, yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah, you should slash his tires.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
Because they can't tell you no. And especially in this day and age, like the fact that I, I'm not allowed to disagree with you anyway. There's no debating anymore, right? Like, it's not like I can sit here and go, especially if you're really in it, I'm just gonna go let you be in it. Like I can't. I mean, you and I have a different relationship, but like,
Oh, fuck yeah.
I'd be like,
Okay.
although when we're in it, we let each other stay there for just a minute because like you can't touch it because it'll bite you.
Yeah, sometimes you have to respect that somebody is in it. Like if you
Right.
see your friend going through something, because yeah, we do this, and then I'm always
Mm-hmm.
thankful afterwards when it does get resolved or it does get pointed out, and then I'm like hyper made aware of it, and I'm like, oh, thank you. It kind of pulls me out of that space. But when you're in that space fresh, it's gonna bite you.
Yeah, I mean, because I feel it, like I get bit a lot, and you've seen it happen. Like, people defend themselves because I touched something that hurt, because it's screaming at me. Like, even, um, oh, I just went blank because I think I don't want to talk about it, so never mind.
That's okay. What I was gonna say to that too is, um, sometimes with that, you guys also that meaning like talking to your friends and stuff. Most of the time you're talking to somebody that could have the same problems as you,
Right, right.
and it's not going to help healing. So talking to a therapist, what I really want to talk about when it comes to therapy though, really quick, because I see this a lot when I talk about therapy, is you go to a therapist, you don't like them. You feel like you're not getting anything. They're not talking to you in a way that hits you. They're not helping you. Don't write it off, man.
Mm-hmm.
I found my therapist through Psychology Today. And something that I knew I really, really wanted in a therapist was I wanted them to have similar beliefs to me when it comes to religion and spirituality. I wanted somebody that could talk to me in a way that is my healing language, basically,
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to say it. My healing language is going to be different meditations, salt baths, things like that on a 3D level. And then on a more spiritual level, I want to talk about it like the way we're talking about it today. And so Psychology Today is really, really great. And this isn't an ad. I wish we were getting paid for this, but we're not.
not
But
not yet.
Psychology Today is really great because you can go in there and they have a ton of filters on things you do and don't want. Say you're non binary and you really don't want somebody that's also not non-binary. Say you
Mm-hmm.
want somebody who is also non-binary, also a licensed therapist who is going to help you get through things you're going through. You'd say
Mm-hmm.
you're part of LGBTQIA and you really want somebody else that understands that realm, you can put all of that in there. For me, it was I don't want anybody who is religious in a different way than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a button for spirituality. And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, dude." Like that's what I wanted. And I
Mm-hmm.
was reading through what's really great about that website too is they all put excerpts of themselves on there. And I was reading, it's kind of like what we were talking about last week, where it's like you go until you find what resonates.
Absolutely.
And I found her because she was talking about things that I also agree with. And she was looking at things that I really needed help with.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I went through therapy boot camp with her where we were rearranging trauma in my head. I've never in my life experienced something like this where it was like I was on a bus in my head, right? And we're
Yeah.
watching a scene replay, and the scene is something that was super traumatic to me that I didn't even realize caused so much trauma. Um, Quick example, I was a very athletic kid and I loved soccer when I was a kid, but my parents were divorced and but my two families did not like each other. And they came to the soccer game and were on absolute opposite ends of the field. And I was a very fast kid and it's kind of a tomboy. Like I always raced the boys. So I was super fast. So I was always the one like running to get the ball to kick it in. And I really wanted to try being goalie. And so I freaking whined my way into it. And I got hit in the face the first
Oh
round or
gosh.
whatever. And I like busted my lip. And both families, imagine they're on each side of the soccer field running towards the middle, man, kind of like that situation. And they're fighting. And I'm just
Oh
sitting here as a
God.
kid bleeding and they're fighting instead of taking care of me.
Mm-hmm.
What I did not realize is that caused this thought form, I guess you could say, or wound in me that I didn't matter. Me as a child, me as a person, I don't matter. Their lives matter more than mine do.
Right.
And therapy is what caused that to heal because then we got to basically in my head, I have a museum, my museum of trauma. But in that museum are different, that is a picture on the wall. And underneath it, the plaque says, "You do matter. You don't need validations from others to feel like you matter."
That's so cool.
Right. And it's a form of, it's called EDMR. And my therapist specialized in it. And we went through a lot of things in my childhood. And it was cool because she kept me from being re-traumatized. So it's like I would see it from a third party view instead of being in it. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid, I used to get a lot of panic attacks, even up into my teen, young adult ages, because things would trigger me and I'd get re-traumatized right then and I'd be in it and I'd panic.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped all of that. So, long story to get to the point of if your therapist isn't giving you what you need, man, look for a new one. Therapists
Absolutely.
are amazing. And I give them all the credit in the world because we're like unpaid, untrained therapists. And I don't think I could do what they do on a daily basis.
Right. Right. Um, I think therapists are great. And yeah, that's going to be like I always tell people when you're searching for something, make your intentions first. So watch your thoughts. Sit there and think, I want the person that resonates with me the most, or I'm searching for the right person to help me the most, or something like that. Watch your thoughts before you start searching. And then, even if the first one isn't it, look at the next one.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
let's say you're
the
somebody
whole
that's
thing is a process.
absolutely. Um, let's say you're somebody that's like listening to us say that and you're like, I can't fucking afford therapy, dude. I don't have insurance. Like, that's expensive. There's other resources out there, man. If you really have the intention to heal, let me tell you, Teal Swan, she's a
Mm-hmm.
controversial topic in the metaphysical world sometimes. I fucking love that woman.
Seriously. Oh my God.
Sometimes some things she says, I'm like, yeah, it's
Uh,
not really resonating with me. But then other times I'm like, how does she take something that seems so complicated and make it so simple? And now I feel like I've learned all I need to know
in 20 minutes.
in 20 minutes. Literally.
20 minutes of her, and I'm over here like, what the fuck?
Why was it so complicated in my head before she said that?
She had one, or she's got, like, God, I remember, like, diving deep. She was definitely one of my hyper fixations of, like, oh, I have to heal everything. Why is this? Why is that? I need to know, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I still, like, go back to her and just love the way, at first, she was triggering. Like, I was like, ew. I'm
Same.
like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to listen to her. And then like I was like, no, no, this is where my spirits have led me, and then like something happened and I was like, oh my God, this woman is brilliant. And maybe it was a little more of her backstory or something like that that made it out, more helpful to identify or to connect with her or whatever. But
I think also, though, it's one of those things where it's projection and reflection.
hmm
Teal Swan says things simply, but to the point. And man,
to the
sometimes that
point.
shit hits you and you're like, turn it off and you're like, ugh. Because, like, again, she could be tapping on that wound, knocking on the door that you hold
Hmm
your wound in. And being aware of that, which is really hard. And that takes time sometimes. You're not going to put it right back on sometimes. Sometimes you got to start looking at it and recognizing, shit, that's a wound. That's why I don't like that video or
hmm
I can't stand her, is because it's a trigger.
Right.
And so starting to recognize it, starting to want to change it, that all leads into that healing process. And I think that's what happened for me with Teal Swan is I was like, ugh, she's all like love and light and like you can just fix it this easy. And I don't like that. And then I looked at
Right.
myself like, that's because you don't want an easy fix, bitch.
Right.
You don't want an easy fix
It's
because,
supposed to be complicated.
but my trauma feels good. That's all I know.
Yeah, it does feel good because it's all you know. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
so true.
Yep.
I like it because it's a warm coat.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Sometimes certain classes can lead to healing. Talking to certain people that can give you different resources, different books. There's so many books. I
hmm
love books.
Books are really nice because you can do it secretly. You can do it at your own pace. Like, you could pick the one book leads to another book. Because uh, I feel like I'm really secretive about that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to tell anybody about it. I don't want to like even for me, thinking about actually talking to a therapist is like, no. Mm-mm.
I understand that. I've had some clients where I'm like, man, maybe you should go to a therapist. And they're like, absolutely not.
They would have to be so idyllic, I guess, that I would. Because if there's one thing, I don't know, like, I guess I have my own version of what a therapist looks like in my head, and I don't like it. Like, it's very judgy. It's very like, oh, we're going to try and make you change who you are in a way that's not good for you, right? To make me more like society. Like
Well,
a good little cubicle worker, and I'm gonna like rock that shit until I'm 65 and then whatever. Right? God.
well, two things to that is
Ugh.
one, to reiterate, healing's different for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so sometimes that might not be the route for you. But also the second thing to that is every every this is going to sound so fucking cliche and
Right?
live. Every
Ugh.
therapist is different. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying every person in the world needs to go to therapy, even though if it wasn't on the podcast, I'd say, yeah, every person in the world needs therapy.
Well,
But
and think about this. We're supposed to go to physicals, right? Every year. Have you ever gotten your brain checked? And I'm not talking like an MRI. I'm talking like, hey, how you feel?
okay, a lot of my clients that listen to this are going to be like, yeah, they're going to text me. I know it and be like, yeah, you fucking say this all the time. Um, and it's not that I'm a controversial thinker, but I am because I like it. But I have literally said that more than anything, I would give all my tax monies to making sure every person has at least one therapy appointment a quarter, at least a quarter, because I think it's so important personally. And again,
Mm-hmm.
healing looks different for everybody, and I totally understand that. But I really truly found healing through therapy specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I found deep, deep healing and things that I just never even realized traumatized me or caused um certain kinds of programming in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um I wouldn't have found them without therapy. So yeah, I think everybody should find a therapist. There's some really
No,
great ones. There's some
and
really
I do
shit ones.
too. I do too. I'm not dissing therapy
Oh
at
yeah, no,
all. Uh, it makes me nervous. It makes
I
me want
get
to
it.
leave. But that's why I've been trying to be hyper aware of what I am, what I'm doing. Like, I think, eat, and breathe this. There's not a time where I've stopped and been like, okay, well, it's not a healing moment. You know what I mean? Like, or I'm not going to be aware of anything in my body. Like, I'm always like, why did I do that? Oh,
Yeah.
that was the other day I was like wrapping presents. And I remember sitting there being so nervous because we were doing the new wrapping TikTok thing, right? And it uses a lot more paper. And I think you'll be able to like feel me on this because it's definitely a not enough kind of
I
wound.
bought 3 rolls and like big ass rolls. I have Christmas wrapping paper for 3 years at least.
Well, when I was wrapping the paper, I was super nervous and I was like, why am I so nervous about using more wrapping paper? And I realized that, because of the lack mentality that I grew up with, that if I used all the wrapping paper, I would be in trouble. Now, I'm a grown woman. I'm 46 years old. I can go out and buy my own goddamn wrapping paper. Like, it's not like it's. But it literally triggered me and put me right into that back of like, I'm using way too much wrapping paper. I don't have enough. And now I'm going to get in trouble for using too much of it.
Do you know what was healing for me on that too? Because I had a moment where I was like, I'm not going to have enough. And then now I'm going to have all this leftover. Is my partner made me feel so freaking awesome after, like, it looks like a little tuxedo. And he was just like, the first one I wrapped, he looks at it and he was like, holy shit, dude. He's like telling his roommate, he's like, dude, come look at this. Look at the way she wrapped this. Like, oh my
Aw.
God, this is so cool. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, so like you're not gonna yell at me for having too much leftover and also not but using
Yeah.
not using I
It's
like did you use
so.
too much too? And
It's
like
being wasteful. Like, there were
yeah, and like
so many.
people are just gonna rip it open. Like, what's the point?
Right.
None of that happened, and I like was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
That's so cool. And that's the thing is like, both of us having that moment, like through wrapping paper, no less, and wrapping gifts and stuff like that. And like, it's so interesting to like how they pop up when, you're doing something just mundane. But it is like doing something and then realizing, wait a minute, I'm super anxious right now. Why am I anxious? I'm sitting in my house. Like, I start taking, like, stock. Like, I'm sitting in my house. My life isn't being threatened. Like, nobody's yelling at me. And it was
Yeah.
such a weird experience.
Yeah, I get that.
Hmm.
But it's also a cool one to recognize where you're like, oh, okay. Like,
Well, I got to heal the fact that I am enough and that I will have enough. And if I don't, I can just go out and get more.
and you're a 46-year-old woman. You're grown as fuck, B.
Grown as fuck,
I can
bitch.
make my own decisions, bitch.
If I want to, I could Uber that shit here.
I could DoorDash that shit. It'll be
I
here
could
in
door
30
dash.
minutes.
Absolutely.
That's sometimes that's what healing looks like too, man.
Right?
Woohoo.
Well, because, really the whole intention of this whole podcast, of this whole like episode is the fact that the more we heal, the less we're going to yell at the person next to us.
And the more forgiveness we'll experience on our own end,
Absolutely. World peace. Here we go.
the better we're gonna feel. Damn, y'all. Do you guys feel tired after this one?
Right? Could we even talk today? Did anything come out legible?
Just so you guys know, if you aren't following our Instagram, we have an Instagram. It's heathens underscore four underscore the underscore people. Follow it because tonight we are going to a fucking Hogwarts dinner, man.
Yeah, bitches.
We'll be posting some pictures, maybe some stories from it on there, just like life stuff. Um, but yeah, today was a good episode. I was excited for this one because really honestly, like Nicole said, man, we just want people to feel more empowered and feel better
Right.
in their day-to-day lives. And
Mm-hmm.
by doing the healing hard work, you just freaking start feeling so goddamn good about your life, and little things stop bothering you less, and it just starts
Mm-hmm.
getting easier, man. There is an easier path to walk than the one of trauma and pain. Yeah, sorry. I make songs out of things.
I like
I'm
that.
like Belcher, the mom. Can't remember her name right now. Linda
Who?
Belcher. There it is.
Linda Belcher. Who's
Yeah, Bob's
that?
Burgers, man. I know
Oh,
you haven't watched it. I
I don't
think you'd
watch
love
that
it.
shit.
I love
No. There's
Linda. We are
there's
similar
not
weird
enough
people.
murder in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that for you. Okay, so next week we are talking crystals, herbs, other magical materials that we really enjoy. We felt like this one was going to be a nice heavy one. So we're going to bring on the light again next week.
Oh,
And
bathing. I love bathing.
yeah, we're going to bring some fun stuff for you guys this next week.
That's cool.
Keep a nice little flow. Um, so yeah, I think that's the third episode.
And we're done.
And we're done. Um,
We're done talking about trauma.
Thanks for listening, guys. We really appreciate the support.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited. I really love doing this. I really do. Like, I hope you guys love it too, because it's just something that we both were very called, and we waited so long to do it. And that first step, is so fucking hard.
Yeah, because
And
we listened to that first episode and we were like, ew, we don't even sound like
ew,
ourselves. But then people
right?
are like messaging us, like
Yeah.
giving us support, being like, you guys sound like you've been doing this for years. And we were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, my heart,
We're
my
like,
heart.
oh.
Thank you. But this has been feeling really good. We were just talking
Mm-hmm.
about that the other day. We feel so good.
Mm-hmm. Confident.
Yeah.
We were talking about confidence. Like, I felt it was almost like a wave too. It wasn't like it was like a gentle, well, it wasn't. It wasn't like it was subtle, I should say. I don't know about you, but I felt like it was like a wave. And then all of a sudden I felt different.
It's like when you get a new hairstyle or you get your nails done or your
Yeah.
lashes done and you're like, she's back, bitch.
It's so true. It's exactly like that. It was exactly like that. That's for sure. And then I didn't say anything to you because I was still monitoring it or like analyzing it in my head. Like, I noticed it, and now I have to like scientifically, like there's scientists in my brain that are like, we noticed that. Okay, so
Capricorn.
write it. Right? Seriously. It's so true. And then you were like, oh my God, I just said, and I was like, oh, me too.
Yeah, that was a good moment. Yeah, so again, you guys, thank you so much for the support.
Hmm.
It's been feeling freaking awesome, and we just hope all this stuff helps, man. We feel good talking about
We
this stuff,
really do.
so we hope you feel good hearing it. It leads to some good shit. So,
Yeah, because the more joy that we can spread, and whatever that looks like, because I know it's been, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we think about joy enough.
yeah, I can't wait for that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I love you.
I love you, and thanks for listening, you guys. We'll
Thanks,
see you
guys.
in episode 4.
Bye.